Okay, let's take a deep dive. Imagine you're navigating a tough challenge. Maybe it's a complex project at work, a difficult negotiation, or, even just figuring out a big personal goal.
Right. And what if there were these, like, timeless principles for handling those situations? Ideas forged in the high-stakes world of ancient conflict.
Exactly. Principles that, even though they came from warfare, might still apply today.
That's precisely what we're digging into. We're pulling insights from some really foundational texts on strategy, stuff written centuries ago, but the core ideas,
hmm
surprisingly relevant to almost any situation with objectives, resources, obstacles, maybe even an opponent.
And our mission here in this deep dive is really to cut through all the historical context and just grab the most powerful, actionable bits.
Yeah, give you a kind of shortcut to thinking strategically, how to size things up, make smart plans, manage what you've got, and hopefully get where you want to go without too much chaos.
It's a big topic. We'll be looking at, well, the basics why strategy is vital, the key factors, the surprising costs of just jumping in.
The art of winning without even fighting, which sounds amazing, right? Plus, tactics, understanding your environment, and critically, getting good information.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. These ancient texts, they don't pull any punches, do they?
No, not at all. Strategy isn't just some military thing for them. It's framed as a matter of vital importance to the state.
Like life and death, the path to safety or ruin. It feels heavy. The message is clear. You can't just ignore this stuff.
Sets the stakes incredibly high, doesn't it? And to get good at this vital art, they say there are 5 constant factors, things you have to think about in any strategic situation. Ignore them, and you're basically asking for trouble.
5 constant factors. Okay, walk us through them.
First up is the moral law. This is all about the connection between the leadership and the people. What makes everyone unified, committed, willing to follow even when things get tough.
So in today's world, that could be like your team's morale, company culture, that shared belief in what you're doing.
Exactly. That internal unity, that spirit, without it, everything else is just harder. It's the human piece.
Okay, number 1, moral law. What's next?
Second is heaven, which sounds kind of grand, but it just refers to the natural conditions, night and day, hot and cold, timing, seasons, basically the external environment, the big factors often outside your direct control.
Ah, like market cycles, the economy, maybe even just the timing of a launch, those big picture forces.
Precisely. Third is Earth. This is more about the immediate physical environment or the specifics of the situation. Distances, dangers, security, open ground versus tight spots. The literal chances the situation offers.
The playing field itself, its upsides, its downsides, like the industry landscape, how a negotiation is structured, the resources right there on the ground. Got it.
Right. Fourth is the commander. This focuses on the leader's qualities, things like wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and interestingly, strictness.
Wisdom, sincerity, kindness, but also strictness. Wow, that's a demanding mix for a leader, isn't it? Strategic, trustworthy, caring, brave, and able to enforce discipline.
It's a high bar, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then the fifth factor is method and discipline. This covers how the whole operation, army, company, whatever is structured. Ranks, supplies, financial management, the actual systems and processes.
Let me recap 5 factors: the human element, the spirit moral law, the big picture context heaven, the immediate situation earth, the leader commander, and the systems method and discipline.
You got it. And the core message is, understand these 5, you've got a path to victory. Ignore them. You're likely setting yourself up for failure.
They even have a way to forecast outcomes, right? These 7 considerations.
Yeah, it's basically a comparison tool. You look at both sides based on those 5 factors. Who's got the better leader? Who's got the advantage with heaven and earth? Whose discipline is tighter? Who's stronger, better trained? Who handles rewards and punishments more effectively?
It's almost like an ancient SWOT analysis, but for conflict situations, really breaking down both sides before you commit.
Exactly. Rigorous assessment up front, which leads us right into one of the most famous principles, maybe the most controversial one.
Ah, you mean the idea that all warfare is based on deception?
That's the one.
Based on deception. That sounds, well, a bit sneaky, doesn't it? Are we talking about lying? Or is it more subtle?
It's probably less about outright lies and more about controlling the narrative, managing perceptions to gain an edge. The examples they give are all about strategic misdirection.
Like appearing weak when you're strong.
Exactly. Or seeming inactive when you're actually deploying forces, making the enemy think you're far away when you're actually close, or vice versa.
Holding out bait, pretending to be disorganized.
irritating an opponent who's got a short fuse, pretending to be weak so they get overconfident. It's about shaping their reality so they miscalculate.
Okay, so it's psychological maneuvering, not just telling fibs, but making them see things wrong.
That's a good way to put it. And all this calculation beforehand, using the 5 factors, the 7 considerations, leveraging deception. That's why they say the winning general makes many calculations before the battle even starts. The loser, but few.
Many calculations lead to victory. Few calculations lead to defeat. The emphasis on planning is huge.
Paramount. Strategy isn't just about doing stuff. It's massively about prep, calculation, even managing perceptions before anything kicks off.
Right, but all that preparing and calculating, risks, it's not free, is it?
These sources get pretty blunt about the costs involved.
Oh, incredibly blunt. They don't shy away from the sheer expense of conflict. Maintaining an army, hugely costly. There's this one detail that really stands out.
Yeah.
For an army of 100,000 men, just the daily running costs things like entertaining guests, materials for repairs like glue and paint. Chariots could hit 1,000 ounces of silver per day.
1,000 ounces of silver every single day. That's mind-boggling. Really hammers home the resource drain.
Absolutely. It shows conflict as this massive financial and logistical weight. And if it drags on, the consequences pile up beyond just money.
Weapons get dull, spirits flag.
Exactly. Ardor gets damned, strength is exhausted, the state's treasury gets emptied, which then makes you vulnerable.
An opening for others to jump in. Precisely. The texts are crystal clear. There is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged war. It's not just about winning. It's about winning efficiently.
So only someone who truly gets how bad war can be knows how to actually run one profitably.
Right. And profitably there doesn't mean making money from the war. It means achieving your goal quickly, decisively, without bankrupting yourself or destroying everything in the process.
Minimizing the cost of success.
Exactly. And part of that efficiency involves foraging on the enemy, feeding your troops from their supplies instead of hauling everything from home. It eases the burden enormously.
They actually say 1 cartload of enemy supplies is worth 20 of your own, right? That's a huge efficiency gain.
Huge. It's leveraging their resources against them. They also talk about using captured soldiers.
How so?
Treat them kindly and incorporate them into your own forces. Again, it's about efficiently boosting your strength with resources already there, not draining your own reserves.
The message seems loud and clear. Victory is the goal, sure, but not through endless, costly campaigns. Smart leaders manage costs and aim for quick, efficient resolution. It's about the nation's well-being.
And that ties perfectly into what they consider the absolute peak of generalship, the highest form of skill,
Which is
winning without fighting.
winning without fighting. Okay, how does that work? That sounds paradoxical, especially in a military context.
It's called supreme excellence. The very best outcome is to break the enemy's resistance without a pitched battle. Taking their country, their army, whatever it is, whole and intact is way better than destroying it.
Ah, okay. So it's about getting what you want, neutralizing the threat, gaining control but with minimal damage and cost. Like a brilliant negotiation outcome, maybe? Or dominating a market without a destructive price war.
Exactly like that. The texts even rank strategic approaches, the absolute best. Bulking the enemy's plans, attacking their strategy, messing with their thinking before they even act.
Wow. Disrupting the plan itself? What's next best?
Preventing their forces from joining up, keeping them divided, scattered, weaker.
Makes sense. Keep them fragmented.
Then, after that, comes attacking their army directly in the field. Actual combat.
And the worst. You mentioned a worse policy.
Besieging walled cities. Absolutely the worst policy.
Why? Sieges seem like standard practice in history.
Because they're incredibly resource-intensive and take forever. The texts talk about months just preparing siege engines and defenses. The general gets impatient, maybe launches attacks too early.
And loses a huge chunk of their soldiers while the town still remains untaken.
Exactly. Massive cost, high risk, no guarantee. It's the perfect example of that prolonged, draining conflict they warn against.
So the truly skilled leader finds ways around that. They achieve the goal, subdue the opponent, gain control without getting stuck in costly fights or sieges.
Yes, through attacking by stratagem, by smart maneuvering. And interestingly, they also warn about how leaders above the general can mess things up.
Like the sovereign or the CEO interfering too much.
Precisely. Hobbling the army, they call it. Giving commands that don't make sense on the ground, tripping them up.
Or trying to run the army like a government department, causing chaos.
Yes, or assigning officers badly, which kills confidence. These higher-level mistakes can completely undermine the general's efforts.
Leadership failures from the top down. So to avoid that and actually win, what are the essentials?
They list 5 essentials for victory. Ready.
Game on me.
1. Knowing when to fight and when not to fight. 2. Knowing how to handle both superior and inferior forces. 3. Having your whole force animated by the same spirit, that unity again.
Okay. Unity, knowing when to engage, handling different force levels.
4. Being prepared yourself while waiting for the enemy not to be prepared. And 5. Having the military capacity and, crucially, not being interfered with by the sovereign.
That last one feels really resonant today, needing the autonomy to actually execute without constant, uninformed meddling from above.
It's about trusting competent leadership on the ground. And this flows right into maybe the most famous line of all.
Know the enemy and know yourself.
You need not fear the result of 100 battles. Simple phrase, incredibly deep meaning.
And the flip side is just as important, isn't it? Know yourself, but not the enemy. You might win, might lose.
50-50 chance. But no, neither yourself nor the enemy. You're basically doomed to fail every single time. It demands that symmetrical understanding inside and out.
It's not just about being strong, it's about understanding the interaction between your strength and the specific challenge. Okay, let's shift to tactics. You've done the prep, you know yourself, you know the enemy. How do you execute?
Well, the first thing a good fighter does, according to these texts, is make themselves unbeatable. Secure their own position first. Then they look for the enemy's vulnerability the moment to strike.
So defense first. Make sure you can't lose, then look for the opening.
Pretty much. Security against defeat is in your own hands. The opportunity to actually defeat the enemy. That often comes from their mistakes.
Defense is when you don't quite have enough strength. Offense is when you have plenty.
Right. And a skilled defender is hidden, unseen, like they're deep underground. A skilled attacker moves like lightning from the heavens, swift, decisive.
And the best victories, the ones won with ease, they don't always look flashy, do they? They might not get you famous for bravery.
Exactly. The truly clever strategist wins before the battle is fought. They only engage when victory is already assured. The loser fights first, and then hopes for victory. It flips the whole script.
Victory as a result of planning, not just luck in a fight. Like that master negotiator knowing the outcome before sitting down.
Perfect analogy. They also talk about analytical steps based on understanding the earth or situation. Measurement, estimation, calculation, balancing chances, and then victory. And interestingly, managing a big force uses the same principles as a small one.
How so?
It comes down to organization, clear signals. They used gongs, drums, flags, and maneuvering, using both direct and indirect methods.
Direct and indirect. Tell me more about that.
Direct is the straightforward approach, the head-on engagement.
Hmm.
Indirect is, well, everything else. Flanking, feints, surprises, the clever stuff. And they say these indirect tactics are inexhaustible.
Like combinations of musical notes or colors, endlessly variable.
Exactly. They create endless possibilities. Direct and indirect play off each other constantly. And it's not just individual skill, it's about combined energy.
The whole force working together.
Yeah, like rolling logs or stones down a hill. It's about momentum, collective force.
So how do you use that to control the enemy?
By shaping their choices. Offer bait to lure them where you want them. Inflict damage or create problems to stop them doing what they want.
If they're resting, poke them. If they're well-fed, cut off supplies.
Exactly. If they're settled, force them to move. Always attack where they're undefended, and make sure your defenses are where they can't attack.
Shaping the battlefield, essentially. Controlling the options. Subtlety seems key.
Totally. Being invisible, inaudible, keeping your plans secret gives you control. If you know their setup but they don't know yours, you can focus your larger force against their smaller, divided parts.
Concentrate your strength where they're weak.
And knowing the time and place lets you do that effectively. So even if you're outnumbered overall, you can still win by disrupting their plans, finding weak spots, and bringing superior force to bear at the crucial point.
It's not just about numbers, but smart deployment.
Yes. And tactics need to be fluid, like water. Avoid strength, strike weakness. No fixed shape, always adapting. That's the mark of a brilliant heaven-born captain, they say.
Like water finding the path of least resistance. What about basic rules? Are there tactical do's and don'ts?
Definitely. Practical stuff, don't attack uphill, don't chase a fake retreat if it looks too tempting, don't swallow obvious bait.
And the idea about surrounding an enemy.
Leave them an escape route. If they're totally trapped, they'll fight with desperate ferocity. Don't push a desperate enemy too hard for the same reason.
Don't back them into a corner where they have nothing left to lose. Makes sense.
Right. But rules aren't absolute. A good leader knows when to break them, even ignore orders from above if the situation demands it, like impossible terrain or a desperate spot. You have to weigh advantage and disadvantage constantly.
So adaptability trumps rigid rules. What about flaws in the general themselves? You mentioned 5 dangerous faults.
Yes, these are personality flaws that can lead to disaster. Recklessness gets you killed. Cowardice gets you captured. A hasty temper makes you easy to provoke,
A delicate sense of honor. What's that?
being too easily shamed or insulted. And finally, over-solicitude for your soldiers caring too much, making you hesitant or overly worried.
Interesting. These are psychological traps for a leader.
Absolutely. Understanding the terrain is vital, but the general's judgment, their ability to calculate and avoid these faults, that's the real test.
Okay, let's talk more about terrain. What are the key principles for using the ground?
They give pretty specific advice. Camp near valleys if you're in mountains, but stay away from rivers after crossing them, preferably upstream. Get across marshes fast. On flat ground, find accessible spots, ideally with higher ground behind you for security.
And avoid dangerous ground yourself, but maybe use it against the enemy.
Exactly. Cliffs, thickets, ambushes. Use the terrain strategically. And learn to read the signs.
Signs. Like what?
Subtle clues. Dust clouds can tell you about chariots or infantry. Lots of birds in one spot might mean it's unoccupied. Soldiers leaning on spears. They might be tired or hungry.
Seeing lots of rewards or punishments in the enemy camp?
Could mean they're in distress or facing discipline issues. It's like reading body language, but
Yeah.
for an army and its environment. Intelligence gathering through observation.
Fascinating. What about managing your own troops on this terrain?
Balance is key again. Treat them with humanity, build trust, but maintain iron discipline. Commands have to be enforced consistently, otherwise they mean nothing. Confidence and obedience go hand in hand.
Care and strictness. That theme keeps coming back.
It does. They also break down terrain into 6 types. Accessible, entangling, temporizing, narrow passes, precipitous heights, great distance, each needing a different approach. And they link failures, what they call the 6 calamities, like flight or collapse, directly to the general, messing up the handling of forces relative to the enemy and the terrain.
So failure often comes down to misjudging the context. It all loops back. Know the ground, know yourself, know the enemy.
That's the formula for complete victory. And they go even deeper, identifying 9 varieties of ground, things like dispersive ground near home, contentious ground, strategically vital, hemmed-in ground, desperate ground.
Desperate ground, where you have no choice but to fight.
Exactly, back against the wall. They say on desperate ground, soldiers find incredible courage because escape isn't an option. You throw them in, they fight.
So you might even deliberately put your troops there.
It's a high-risk tactic, but yes. The point is, you adapt your strategy to the specific type of ground. Keep your plan secret, even from your own officers initially. Keep the enemy guessing. Then act decisively. Commit fully. Kick away the ladder, as they put it.
Burn the boats, no turning back, total commitment.
Precisely. Which brings us nicely to the last big piece, intelligence. The use of spies.
Espionage. Sounds exciting.
The texts argue passionately that you absolutely cannot skimp on intelligence gathering. Think about that huge daily cost of war, the 1,000 ounces of silver. The cost of spies is tiny in comparison. What gives you the edge, the ability to win beyond just force? It's foreknowledge.
And that foreknowledge doesn't just appear magically.
Nope, it comes from other men. Hence, spies are essential. They actually list 5 types.
5 types of spies. Okay, let's hear them.
1. Local spies, people from the enemy's own area. 2. Inward spies, enemy officials you've turned or recruited. 3. Converted spies, enemy spies you've captured and flipped.
Okay, locals, insiders, double agents. What else?
4. Doomed spies. These are spies you deliberately give false information to, expecting they'll be caught by the enemy and pass on the bad intel.
Wow, that's harsh. Expendable assets.
Very harsh. It shows how critical they viewed misinformation. And 5th, surviving spies, the ones who actually get in, get the real info, and get back out.
And which type is most important?
The converted spy, the double agent. They're seen as the key source, the ones who enable you to use the other types effectively. You have to treat them extremely well with utmost liberality to keep them loyal.
Makes sense. Incentives matter.
Absolutely. And using spies effectively takes skill, wisdom, fairness, clarity, ingenuity, and above all, secrecy. They call spies a most important element because an army's ability to move, to act effectively, depends entirely on them. Without good intel, you're flying blind.
Okay, so we've journeyed through these ancient, powerful ideas. Knowing the fundamentals, the costs, Aiming to win without fighting if possible, adaptable tactics, using the environment, prioritizing intelligence. It's a lot. The big question for everyone listening is, how does this 2,500-year-old stuff apply now?
That's the real takeaway, isn't it? Think about your own challenges, that project, that negotiation, that goal. Are you considering those 5 factors? The team spirit, the timing, the landscape, your leadership, your systems.
Are you aware of the costs of just dragging things out versus finding an efficient solution? Could you win without fighting, maybe through smarter positioning or finding common ground instead of confrontation?
Are you really assessing yourself and the challenge, your opponent?
Sure.
Are your methods flexible like water or rigid? Are you reading the signs around you?
And maybe most importantly, how are you getting your foreknowledge? Are you doing the work to gather the information you need before you act?
Stripped down, these principles offer this incredibly robust framework for thinking strategically about, well, almost anything.
It really does provide a different way to look at problems, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. This idea of winning before the battle, of winning without fighting, it implies this incredible level of understanding, right? Of yourself, the other side, the whole situation, so much so that costly conflict just isn't needed.
It suggests the highest form of strategy isn't about force, but about profound preparation, positioning, understanding.
Does that mean the greatest victories, maybe in business, in relationships, in life, are the ones where you manage to avoid the destructive fight altogether?
Something powerful to think about, definitely.
We've covered a lot of ground, diving deep into these fundamental strategic principles. Hopefully you found an idea or two that resonated, something that might shift how you approach your own challenges.
Until next time.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Thought podcast.